Hey guys, so today we're going to look at the manipulation of formula. So, just have a bit of a puzzle here. The area of the rectangle below is 30 metres squared and the length of one side is given. We can see that that's 5 metres. How would we find the length of y? So if we know the area and we know the length of one side, how would we go about finding the length of y? Well, it's fairly straightforward. Some of you may have already done this in your head. We would think about what the area is. So we know that area is equal to length multiplied by height. And we know that the area in this case is 30 metres squared. And we know the length of one side. So we know that that's 5 metres. And it would be multiplied by some value y. And so most of you would have said that 30 divided by 5 will give me y, and you're correct. So we know that y is 6 metres. Okay, so on that then, what you actually did there was that you manipulated some formulae, alright? And you did so without even knowing. So what we did there is that we found the length of the unknown side, which we call y, in terms of the area on the other side. So if we just look at the formula itself. So let's look at this formula up here. So we're going to say that A is equal to area. We're going to say we have a side y. That's going to be equal to the length. And we have the width. So I know I have height there, but let's instead call that width. Okay. So width. W is a width. Okay, so if we were to write a formula representing that information, A equals, we know that one side is called y and W is the other side. And if we wanted to write that in terms, that y in terms of A and W, then what we would need to do is, we can see that here it is multiplied. And what we want is, we want that y by itself. Okay, and what you guys did up here is that in order to get that y by itself, you actually went ahead then and just divided the other side by 5. Okay, and it's a bit like what we did before in linear algebra, solving an equation. If I want to get rid of something, I can simply divide on the bottom by the thing that I want to get rid of. Okay, and if I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. So what I get then is these two cross out, and I got y equals to A over W, which if you look up here, this is exactly what you guys did. So you put the area over W, the width, which in this case the width was 5. Okay, so let's take another example. So you might remember from junior cert that the area of a triangle can be denoted by the following. So this A is equal to a half base by height. So I've just put that half in 0.5. So you'll remember that you would have had a triangle. If we just draw a rough triangle, and you would have been told that the base might have been 10, and then the height could have been 4. So you would have done half the base, which is 10, by 4. So you know that the area of that triangle would be 20 units square. So whatever a unit is, it could be meters, it could be centimeters, so on. So that's what you would learn for junior cert. But say, for example, we knew that the area, we knew what the area was, and we knew the base, but we didn't know the height. So what we would want to find is that we would want to find height in terms of area and base. So how would I go about manipulating that formula there? Okay, so A is equal to 0.5 B by H. Okay, and I just want, when I'm going to write height in terms of area and base, what that means is I want my H on one side and I want everything else on the other side. So again, when we're looking at something like this, what I can do is I can always divide. When I have something like this, I can divide by what I don't want. So on this little right hand side, I don't want 0.5. I don't want b. Now if I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. So 0.5 b. You'll see that they'll cancel on this side. And what I get, and I'm just going to flip these over so that my h is on the left side, and I can do that, is equal to a over 0.5b. So now if I was told what a is and I was told what b is, I'd be able to answer what the height would be. So for example, if they told me that the area was 30 and the base, so a equals 30 and the base equals 10, I could now fill in that formula. So I can say 30 divided by 0.5 by 10, which will give me 0.5 multiplied by 10 is half a 10, so that's 5, which will give me 6. So the height then of a particular triangle with the area of 30 meters squared or 30 centimeters squared and the base of 10 would be 6. So let's take an example here. This is an example of how to calculate Celsius when you have Fahrenheit. So it's to do with temperature. Okay, so write F in terms of C. What that means is we want to have F on the left hand side. We want to have F by itself. So F by itself. That's all that means. And we will want to have C on the opposite side to it. Self. Okay. Okay, so how would we go about doing this? First of all, with this, I would simplify anything I can. So we can see that we have brackets here. They're not ideal, so we want to get rid of those brackets. So the first thing I would do here is I would say C is equal to 5F minus 32 by 5. I got 160. All divide by 9. Okay, and there's two simple rules when we're looking at manipulations. So we have two rules. So the first rule is the multiplication rule. And the multiplication rule is that if the variable that we want by itself is multiplied by something, a number or another variable, we divide both sides of the equal sign by that number or variable. And you guys are so used to this because we've done it so much with linear equations. Say for example, we have 10x equals to 90. You guys know that all I need to do there to find out what x is divide both sides by 10. Okay, so we've used that one quite a bit. The one that we probably haven't used a lot is the second one, and that's the rule of division. And that is, if the variable is the top part of a fraction, so it's the numerator, we can multiply both sides of the equal sign. So multiply both sides of the equal sign by the denominator. So for example, if I had x over 4 is equal to 10, then what I would do there is I'd multiply both sides by 4, and these would cancel, and I'd get x is equal to 40. Okay, so we're going to use that rule now to get rid of this fraction here. So my second step then is I'm going to take this whole thing and multiply it by 9. And if I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. So I'm going to also multiply that by 9. Now what happens here is that we see these two cancel. And what I'm left with then is 9c equals to 5f minus 160. Okay. Now it doesn't matter if I went ahead and multiplied that 9 in here, because what would happen is 9 would then divide into everything and I'd still get 5x or 5f minus 160. Now all I need to do, so linear equation again, we want f by itself. So as you remember from normal linear equations, if I want f by itself, I don't want this minus 160 there. So I can either add 160 to that side. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. Or I can just bring it across and it becomes 9c plus 160. and that's equal to 5f. I'm not finished now. I have a problem because I have a 5 in front of that f. So what I'll have to do, and again this comes from when we were looking at linear algebra, solving linear equations, all I do is I simply divide both sides by 5 to simplify that. And then what happens here is that I get those two cancels, those two 5s will cancel. And just what I would do here for the last part of this is I'd actually just flip those around, so my f is always on my left hand side. So whatever I'm going to write it in terms of is on my left hand side. So f is equal to 9c plus 160 all over 5. Okay, so let's take another example then. Write x in terms of y and z. So what this means is that we need x by itself, and then z and y to the other side of the equal sign. Okay, so remember what we did before. We said y is equal to 3x plus 2 all over z. And first thing I notice here is that I have this z on the bottom, and I don't want that. So what I'll need to do here is that I will need to multiply both sides of this by the z. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. Then what happens is these cancel, and what I'll get then is zy equals to 3x plus 2. Okay, so I want x by itself. I have a plus 2 beside it. I don't want that there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over the far side. And again, what I'll get is zy minus 2, because remember it goes across the equal sign and becomes minus, equals to 3x. Last step here, I don't want the 3 with the x, I just want the x by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. They'll cancel on that side. And what I'll be left with, so I can just flip these over, just so that I have my x on my left hand side. I have zy minus 2 all over 3.